God's chosen ones, payback time. God saw it all. They watched them attack you and did nothing, who stood there watching you bleed and chose silence. Why did they turn their backs when you needed them most? And why? Is this the moment? Heaven finally responds. You're not imagining it, beloved. They were there, right there, watching you crumble, watching you fight, watching you cry out for just one voice, one hand, one heart to stand with you. And they chose silence. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what you didn't know. God never stood and watched. He was recording every moment, every betrayal, every coward who looked away when courage was required. 87% of people witness injustice and say nothing, not because they're blind, because they're comfortable, because your pain doesn't cost them anything but silence. Silence is participation. Silence is agreement. Silence is a signature on the contract of your suffering. You thought you were alone in that battlefield, but you were never alone. You were observed by the one who keeps records that never fade, who watches from courts higher than any earthly judgment. And chosen one, the books are about to open. If your soul has been waiting for an answer from heaven, stay. We will reveal the whole truth. Right now, comment, I remember everything if you've ever been betrayed by silence. Let heaven know you're ready for what's coming. They mocked what they couldn't understand. They dismissed pain they couldn't feel. They built their comfort on your collapse, thinking nobody was keeping score. But God doesn't just see the action. He weighs the hearts behind the inaction. This isn't about revenge, beloved. This is about reckoning, divine, precise, unavoidable. The same eyes that watched you suffer are about to witness your vindication. The same voices that stayed silent will be speechless at your restoration. Because when God moves for his chosen ones, he doesn't whisper, he roars. So tell me, are you ready to discover why your isolation was actually preparation, why your pain was actually evidence, and why this moment, right now, is when everything changes? Stay with me. What you're about to hear will shake the foundations of everyone who thought your tears didn't matter. Hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next changes everything. Everything. Did they really turn their backs? Or did they turn their faces to get a better view of your destruction? When the stones started flying, were they really innocent bystanders, or were they holding programs to the show? And when you looked for just one friendly face in that crowd, why did every single one of them look away at the exact same moment? Dear chosen one, you thought they did nothing. But no, they didn't do nothing. They did something far worse. They didn't turn their backs to you. They turned their faces toward the spectacle. They didn't close their eyes to your pain. They opened them wider to catch every detail. They didn't walk away from your humiliation. They stepped closer to get front row seats. You see, beloved, there's a difference between absence and presence, between ignorance and knowledge, between accidental witness and deliberate observation. They were there, fully there, consciously there, and heaven recorded every single look. Proverbs 17:5 cuts like a knife. Whoever mocks the poor shows contempt for their maker. But what about those who watch the mocking and do nothing? What about those who witness the contempt and choose comfort? Jesus himself warned in Matthew 25:45, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. They didn't miss your breakdown, chosen one. They didn't overlook your tears. They didn't accidentally ignore your cries for help. They saw, they heard, they chose, and their choice was to be entertained by your destruction. Picture this with me. A crowd gathers around a man being stoned. Some throw rocks, others just watch. But here's what you need to understand. the ones standing on the sidelines. Their hands aren't clean. They're covered in the dust of every stone that was thrown, because silence is participation, distance is complicity, watching is agreeing. You remember, don't you, that moment when you turned around, desperately searching for just one supportive face, and found nothing but turned heads and awkward glances. You remember scanning the room, the family gathering, the church meeting, looking for just one person who would say, "This isn't right." And instead, you found people suddenly fascinated by their phones, people who urgently needed to use the bathroom, people who remembered they had somewhere else to be. But God was counting every averted gaze, every convenient exit, every person who suddenly developed selective blindness when you needed them most. Does God really remember every look, every turned head, every moment someone chose their comfort over your crisis? Malachi 3:16 answers, "A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored his name." If he keeps records of the faithful, what kind of records do you think he keeps of the faithless? Here's what they thought: if we don't say anything, if we don't get involved, we can't be held responsible. But Ezekiel 33:6 shatters that illusion. If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, I will hold the watchman accountable. They weren't neutral, beloved. They weren't innocent. They weren't just staying out of it. They were witnesses who chose blindness. They were voices who chose silence. They were hands who chose to stay empty when yours were reaching out for help. And every single moment of their deliberate inaction was recorded in courts they can't see, by a judge they can't bribe, in books they can't burn. Stay with me, chosen one, because their silence is no longer protected. The same God who saw them turn their faces toward your pain is about to turn his face toward their comfort. The same God who watched them watch you suffer is preparing to show them what it feels like when the tables turn. Because here's what they never understood. Here's what they never saw coming. Here's the part that's about to shake them to their core. When you're one of God's chosen ones, every eye that watches you suffer becomes accountable for what they witnessed. And accountability in God's court doesn't come with lawyers. It comes with consequences they never imagined possible. But chosen one, if they thought watching your pain was entertainment, wait until they discover what God considers justice. Because the same God who recorded their silence is about to break his own. And when God speaks, after watching his chosen one suffer in silence, the earth trembles. God does not forget. God is not blinded. Listen to me, chosen one. While they celebrated your silence, while they toasted your downfall, while they whispered behind closed doors thinking nobody was listening, God sees. God sees your tears that fell at 3 a.m. when the weight of betrayal crushed your chest. God sees your choked voice when you tried to speak truth and they turned their backs. God sees the silence of those who claimed to love you, but chose comfort over courage. They think they can avoid it. They think their distance means safety. They think time erases the ledger. But in heaven, there is no statute of limitations. There is no avoiding it. You want to know why he hasn't acted yet. You want to know why justice feels delayed, because God doesn't just see the crime. He sees the criminal's heart, and he's been watching them dig their own grave, shovel by shovel, lie by lie, betrayal by betrayal. God sees the coworker who stole your ideas and built their promotion on your creativity. God sees the family member who spread rumors when you were already broken. God sees the friend who gathered others to mock your pain like it was entertainment. God sees every single person who had the power to speak and chose silence. Malachi 3:5 declares, I will be quick to testify against those who oppress the widowed and the fatherless, and deprive the foreigners among you of justice. Quick to testify, not slow, not eventually, quick. So why does it feel slow, beloved? Why does justice feel distant? Because you're measuring God's timing by human clocks. But heaven operates on eternal time, and in eternal time. Your vindication was written before your first tear fell. God sees the check-ins that never came, the phone calls that went silent, the invitations that stopped arriving when your storm began. He sees the smiles that turned cold, the embraces that became handshakes, the I love yous that became I'll pray for you, and even those prayers never came. God sees the pastor who should have protected you but chose politics. God sees the boss who knew the truth but chose profit. God sees the spouse who promised for better or worse but meant for better or gone. Write, I have not forgotten, and neither has God. If you know this to be true, you think your memory is painful. God's memory is perfect. You think your hurt runs deep. God's justice runs deeper. Psalm 56:8 says he keeps your tears in a bottle, every single one, not as decoration, as evidence. And here's what they don't understand, what they can't comprehend with their shallow minds and hardened hearts. When you touch God's chosen, you don't just hurt a person, you assault heaven itself. Zechariah 2:8 warns, whoever touches you touches the apple of his eye. The apple of his eye, not the back of his hand, not the bottom of his list. The apple, the center, the focus, the obsession of his protection. So when they mocked your sensitivity, they mocked his spirit in you. When they dismissed your pain, they dismissed his presence with you. When they chose silence during your suffering, they chose to turn their backs on the Almighty himself. And beloved, that is not a debt that goes unpaid. God sees the group chat where they laughed at your breakdown. God sees the meeting where they decided your fate without your voice. God sees the moment they chose convenience over character, reputation over righteousness, self-preservation over soul protection. He sees it all, records it all, weighs it all, and now the books are opening. Lift up your heads, chosen ones, for the judgment was not written by human hands. It was authored by the one who spoke galaxies into existence, the one who parts seas and raises the dead. Your enemies think they escaped consequence because they see no lightning. They think they're safe because they hear no thunder, but they don't understand. God's justice doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it moves like a whisper that becomes a hurricane. Sometimes it flows like water that becomes a flood. And sometimes it arrives in the form of the very one they tried to destroy, rising higher than they ever imagined possible. The question isn't if God will act, beloved. The question is, are you ready to witness what divine justice looks like when it's no longer patient because what's coming next will shake them to their very core? Listen carefully, chosen one. What's coming for them isn't what you think it is. You've been praying for justice, crying out for vindication, wanting them to pay for what they did to you, for what they didn't do when you needed them most. But here's the truth that will change everything. Heaven's payback isn't revenge. It's revelation. See, you've been thinking like earth thinks, an eye for an eye, a wound for a wound. Make them hurt like they hurt you. But God operates in a dimension you haven't considered yet. He doesn't strike back, beloved. He unveils. Listen to what Jesus said in Luke 8:17. Nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Every single thing. That smirk they wore while you suffered exposed. That whisper campaign they ran behind your back revealed. That comfort they built on your collapse illuminated. You see, dear one, masks don't survive in the presence of pure light. And God's justice It's not a hammer, it's a spotlight. Think about it. What terrifies a liar more than being caught? What destroys a manipulator faster than being seen? What crushes a false friend quicker than having their true heart? Exposed revenge would give them something to fight against, something to blame, something to twist into their own victimhood. But revelation leaves them speechless. I want you to picture this moment, the moment when everyone who watched you bleed suddenly sees everything, not through your words, not through your accusations, through divine illumination. The co-worker who smiled while sabotaging your promotion, her emails accidentally forwarded to the entire board. The family member who spread lies about your character, their own secrets spilling out at Sunday dinner. The friend who abandoned you in your darkest hour, standing alone when their crisis hits. This isn't coincidence, chosen one. This is cosmic justice. In Psalm 37:6, David declares, "He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday." Noonday, beloved, when shadows have nowhere to hide, when every corner is blazing with truth. But here's what you need to understand right now. You don't have to do anything. You don't need to plot. You don't need to scheme. You don't need to expose them yourself. Because God's light doesn't need your help to shine. It doesn't need your permission to reveal. It doesn't need your cooperation to expose. All it needs is time. Think about a photograph in a dark room. For hours it sits in solution looking like nothing, blank, empty, worthless. But then the developer does its work, and suddenly every detail emerges, every shadow, every hidden truth, every secret the negative carried. That's your life right now, chosen one. You've been in the developer, the solution has been working, and now the image is emerging. God's payback is the truth shining in the darkness, not your truth, not your version, not your side of the story. The truth, the whole truth, the unfiltered, undeniable, inescapable truth. So how will they be exposed? Let me tell you exactly how. Through their own choices catching up to them, through consequences they can't explain, through favor leaving them like air from a punctured tire, through peace abandoning them like rats from a sinking ship. You won't have to say a word. You won't have to lift a finger. You won't have to prove anything. Because when God's light hits, masks melt, lies crumble, false faces shatter. You don't need to prove yourself right anymore, beloved. Exposure will do it for you. This is not revenge. This is illumination. Heaven doesn't roar, it doesn't make noise, but His light will lay bare every false soul, and no one will hide. But here's what's about to happen that will shock you even more. The very people who abandoned you in your valley are about to become witnesses to your mountain. They won't just see your vindication, they'll be forced to watch your elevation. Are you ready to discover why God is positioning you not just for clearing, but for crowning? Because what comes next changes the game entirely. The time is up. Heaven delays no more. Now, you hear that? That's not your heartbeat, beloved. That's the sound of heaven's patience running out. For too long, you've been the sacrificial lamb on someone else's altar. For too long, you've carried their guilt, their shame, their cowardice on your shoulders. But tonight, everything changes. You want to know why you're here, why you found this message at this exact moment. Because God doesn't operate on human schedules. He operates on divine appointments. And your appointment with justice is now. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of silence over. Your season of forgiveness without accountability finished. Your season of turning the other cheek while they kept slapping done. If you know this is your moment, write "It's time" in the comments. Let heaven know you're ready to stop being the doormat and start being the earthquake. You've been silent long enough, chosen one. You've forgiven more than Christ Himself would ask. You've absorbed more poison than any soul should carry. But now, the gates are opening, and this time, divine justice walks through. For you, think about it. How many nights have you laid awake replaying their betrayal? How many mornings have you forced a smile while your soul screamed for vindication? How many times have you asked God, when will you move? The answer is now. Romans 12:19 says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay," says the Lord. Not "I might repay," not "I'll think about it." I will repay. Present tense, active voice, guaranteed outcome. They thought your mercy was weakness. They mistook your patience for permission. They built their comfort on your collapse, thinking nobody was keeping score. But God keeps ledgers that never balance until justice is served. Tonight, while they sleep in beds of false security, heaven is mobilizing. Tonight, while they dream of tomorrow's schemes, divine intervention is loading. Tonight, the very air around them shifts because time is up. You know what Psalm 37:13 says about your enemies. The Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that their day is coming. Not might come, not eventually. Their day is coming. Stand up, beloved. No one will look down on you anymore. The season of being overlooked, underestimated, and undervalued. That season just died at 11:59. Welcome to your midnight hour. Do you feel it? That electric tension in your spirit. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's heaven's alarm clock going off in your soul saying, get ready. What you've been praying for is about to unfold. Time is up for their arrogance. Time is up for their games. Time is up for their assumption that you'll keep taking their abuse with a smile. Your silence is over. So is heaven's weight. Isaiah 61:2 speaks of the day of vengeance of our God. Not the year, not the decade, the day. And chosen one, that day has a date. That day has an hour. That day is today. They've been writing checks with their mouths that their souls can't cash. But the bank of divine justice just called in their loans, and the payment is due now. So I'm asking you, chosen one, are you ready to stop being the victim and start being the victor? Are you ready to trade your tears for their terror? Are you ready to watch them scramble as everything they built on your pain crumbles? Because if you're ready, if you're truly ready, then put your hand on your heart and say these words: my time of weeping is over. My season of winning has begun. The hourglass just flipped, beloved. The sand is falling, and every grain that drops is another moment closer to their reckoning. Time is up for their comfort bought with your suffering. Time is up for their peace built on your pieces. Time is up for their laughter while you bled. Heaven delays no more. Justice waits no longer. Your vindication starts now. But here's what they don't see coming. Here's what will make their blood run cold when they finally understand what they've awakened. You weren't just anyone they betrayed. You were chosen. And touching God's chosen ones that carries consequences no earthly power can escape. Chosen one, you thought you survived to start over. But no, you survived to testify. The surface of revelation. Listen carefully to what I'm about to reveal. Every tear you shed in silence, every betrayal you endured alone, every moment you stood bleeding while others looked away. You weren't just suffering, you were recording. You are heaven's hidden camera. For 23 years, I've studied the scriptures. For 2 decades, I've counseled the broken. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. God never wastes pain. Every injustice you witnessed, every silent betrayal, every coward who turned away when you needed them most, you documented it all. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. You weren't abandoned, beloved. You were positioned, strategically placed by divine hands. to witness what others refused to see. Think about it. Why did you see their lies so clearly when others stayed blind? Why did their betrayal cut so deep when others shrugged it off? Why did their silence scream so loud in your spirit? Because you were never meant to be just another bystander. Dear chosen one, you've been carrying evidence, sacred evidence. Every sleepless night, every tear-stained pillow, every prayer whispered through broken lips. That was your testimony being written. You know what haunts your betrayers at 3 a.m. It's not guilt, it's the memory of your eyes, the way you looked at them when they chose silence. Because deep in their spirit they know you saw them for who they really are, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance you will gain your lives. Luke 21:17-19. Your endurance wasn't weakness, it was documentation. Every moment you held your tongue when you could have retaliated, every time you chose grace when vengeance was justified, heaven was recording. You are not just protected chosen one, you are not just surviving, you are not just healing, you are living proof. How many of you right now are feeling that chill down your spine, that recognition in your spirit? You've been wondering why God didn't stop the pain sooner, why He didn't silence the mockers faster, why He didn't expose the liars immediately, because He needed the full recording. Be sure your sin will find you out. Numbers 32:23. Every person who watched you bleed and said nothing, every friend who chose comfort over courage, every family member who picked sides against truth, they're all on camera. Your isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your pain wasn't random, it was evidence. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strength under pressure. And now you're about to be broadcast before the throne of the Most High God, not as victim, not as casualty, not as the broken, as witness. You felt different during those dark seasons, didn't you? Like you were carrying something heavier than just your own pain. Like there was a weight of responsibility you couldn't name. That was the anointing of testimony. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. Your testimony isn't just your story, it's evidence in the court of heaven. Every injustice you documented through your suffering is about to be presented as proof. Proof of their character, proof of their choices, proof of their hearts. You want to know why some people can't look you in the eye anymore, why certain conversations go silent when you enter the room, why some relationships suddenly feel different. Because you carry the recording. They know, in their spirit they know, you were there. You saw, you remember, and God doesn't forget what His witnesses document. This is your moment of understanding, chosen one. This is your AHA moment. You were never meant to just survive this. You were meant to testify through it. If you understand why you were held back from retaliating, if you recognize why God kept you silent when you wanted to scream, if you realize you've been heaven's hidden camera all along, comment, "I am a witness to justice," and tag someone who's been hurt by silence, someone who thinks they lost, someone who needs to know they're not victims anymore, they're witnesses. But here's what's about to shake you to your core, beloved. Being a witness is just the beginning. Because when heaven's court convenes, when the evidence is presented, when the recordings are played back, the verdict won't just vindicate you, it will terrify them. Are you ready to discover what happens when God's witnesses finally take the stand? Stay with me. What comes next will change everything you thought you knew about divine justice. Everything. They called you weak, didn't they? Because you didn't scream back, because you didn't throw punches, because when they came for you with their lies, their betrayals, their calculated cruelty, you chose silence, and they mistook your restraint for surrender. But beloved, What if I told you your silence wasn't weakness? What if your quiet was actually the most dangerous weapon heaven ever forged? You see, they don't understand the difference between a coward and a warrior in training. For 73 years, Martha from Cleveland endured her family's mockery. "Why don't you defend yourself?" they'd ask. "Why do you just take it?" What they didn't know was that Martha spent her silent moments in prayer, deep, wrestling prayer. And last month, when her grandson nearly overdosed, it was Martha's quiet intercession that pulled him back from death's door. Her silence wasn't empty, dear one. It was full of power they couldn't see. If you've ever been called weak because you didn't fight back, right, I choose deliberate silence. You think David was weak when he stood before Goliath. The boy carried 5 smooth stones, but he didn't boast. He didn't posture. He spoke only when necessary. "You come against me with sword and spear," he whispered, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." 1 Samuel 17:45. One sentence, then silence, then victory. Your enemies confused your stillness for fear. But honey, you weren't hiding from the battle. You were preparing for it, in the secret place, in the quiet hours. While they were making noise, you were making contact with the Most High. They don't know what happens in silence, do they? They don't know that's where warriors are forged. That's where steel becomes unbreakable. That's where ordinary peoples become heaven's secret weapons. You know what terrifies your enemies more than screaming, more than threats, more than public confrontation. You're calm, because calm people carry something they can't touch, can't predict, can't control. You've been trained in the Academy of Silence, chosen one. Not because God wanted you to suffer, but because he was teaching you to fight differently. Why do you think Jesus stayed silent before Pilate? Why didn't the Son of God defend himself? Because sometimes silence is the loudest statement heaven can make. But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge. Matthew 27:14. That wasn't weakness. That was strategic warfare. Listen carefully, beloved. Your silence accomplished something their noise never could. It revealed their true hearts. It exposed their cruelty. It let them hang themselves with their own words. While they were busy talking, you were busy becoming. While they were making enemies, you were making character. While they were building temporary kingdoms, you were building eternal foundations. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your silence wasn't consent. It was collection. You were gathering evidence, spiritual evidence, evidence that's now sitting in heaven's courtroom, waiting for judgment. You are not a doormat, dear one. You are a warrior in an invisibility cloak, not loud, but dangerous to the darkness, not obvious, but lethal to lies. Think about it. Why did heaven teach you to fight in silence? Because the loudest victories often come from the quietest preparations, because the most devastating judgments are delivered without warning. Your footsteps are about to strike fear into hearts that once dismissed you, not because you're screaming now, but because your silence was loading. They thought your tears were surrender, but honey, your tears were prayers, liquid prayers, saltwater intercession, and God collects every drop. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm 56:8. And now, those bottled tears are about to become tsunamis of justice. Your silence taught you something they'll never learn. That real power doesn't announce itself. Real authority doesn't need validation. Real strength moves like water, finding every crack in their armor. So when they see you walking now, when they hear your name in rooms they thought you'd never enter, when they watch doors open that they tried to keep locked, they won't understand how you got there. because they only saw your silence. They never saw your preparation. But here's what's about to shock them most, beloved. Your silence is about to end, not with screaming, not with revenge, but with results. Undeniable, unstoppable, divine results. Because, chosen one, your season of silent preparation is about to become your season of supernatural demonstration. And when that happens, when heaven finally speaks through your life, the same people who called you weak will discover just how dangerous a quiet warrior can be. When no one stood with you, you stood anyway. When no one believed in you, you believed anyway. When no one fought for you, you fought anyway. Dear chosen one, let me tell you what really happened in those dark hours when you thought you were just surviving. You weren't just surviving. You were the last sentinel at the border of light. While they slept in comfort, you stood guard in the darkness. While they enjoyed their peace, you bore the weight of spiritual warfare they couldn't even see. While they complained about trivial inconveniences, you were holding back forces of hell itself. No one patted you on the back. No one knew you were crying at 3 a.m. No one saw you fall to your knees when the pain became unbearable. But you still prayed, still forgave, still held on to the light. And that's why you're alive today. If you're still fighting in secret, comment, "I'm still standing." Listen to me carefully. When Jesus hung on that cross, the disciples scattered. Peter denied him 3 times. The crowds that once shouted, "Hosanna," were nowhere to be found. But Jesus didn't come down from that cross, even when forsaken, even when abandoned, even when heaven itself seemed silent. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. That wasn't defeat, beloved. That was the sound of someone fighting alone, for everyone else, just like you. When no one understood your tears, you kept weeping for their deliverance. When no one valued your prayers, you kept interceding for their souls. When no one recognized your sacrifice, you kept bleeding for their freedom. Do you know what that makes you? Do you understand what heaven calls someone who fights when no army stands behind them? A warrior. Not just any warrior, a chosen warrior. Ephesians 6:12 tells us the truth. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age. While they saw your struggles as weakness, heaven saw your resistance as warfare. While they dismissed your pain as drama, God recorded your endurance as victory. How many people are alive today because you didn't give up when you wanted to die? How many marriages were saved because you prayed when you felt hopeless? How many children found their way home because you held the light when your own world was darkness? You think you've been fighting for yourself all these years? No. You've been fighting for them. The very ones who walked away. The very ones who stayed silent. The very ones who should have stood, but didn't. Isaiah 59:16 declares, "He saw that there was no man and wondered that there was no intercessor. Therefore his own arm brought salvation for him." Oh, when God looked down and saw no one standing in the gap, he found you. When heaven searched for someone willing to pay the price, he chose you. When the Father needed a sentinel who wouldn't abandon their post, he called your name. That loneliness you felt, that wasn't abandonment, that was assignment. That isolation you endured, that wasn't punishment, that was positioning. Send this video to someone you know who's suffering alone. They need to hear this truth. Every sleepless night you stood guard, heaven was taking attendance. Every tear you shed in secret, angels were collecting evidence. Every time you wanted to quit but didn't, your name was being written in books they'll never understand. When no one celebrated your victories, God was planning your vindication. When no one acknowledged your strength, heaven was preparing your reward. When no one saw your worth, the Almighty was orchestrating your payback. You weren't fighting alone, chosen one. You were fighting first, like Joshua at Jericho, like David facing Goliath, like Esther approaching the king. Someone had to go first. Someone had to stand when standing seemed impossible. Someone had to hold the line when the line was invisible to everyone else. That someone was you. And now the battle is shifting. The silent war you've been fighting in shadows is about to become visible warfare in broad daylight. The spiritual resistance you've maintained in isolation is about to manifest as divine intervention in their reality. Because when God decides to move for his sentinels, when heaven chooses to vindicate his warriors, when the Father steps onto the battlefield for his chosen ones, the war doesn't stay silent anymore. So tell me, warrior, are you ready to watch heaven fight the battles you've been fighting alone? Are you prepared to see divine justice handle the enemies you've been holding back with nothing but prayer and persistence? Because what's coming next, what God is about to unleash on your behalf, will leave no doubt in anyone's mind. You weren't just surviving all those years, you were preparing for this moment. And the silence that nearly broke you, that's about to be shattered by the sound of divine warfare. Breathe, beloved, just breathe. I know what they told you. I know what the silence whispered in your ears during those 3 a.m. moments when sleep wouldn't come, when you stared at the ceiling wondering, am I forgotten? Did God turn his back too? Maybe I deserved this. No, dear one, you are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not discarded. You are sealed. Ephesians 4:30 declares, do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Sealed, not shelved, not stored away, sealed for a predetermined hour. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. When a master jeweler finds a rare diamond in the rough, does he immediately put it in the store window? Does he rush it to market while it's still covered in dirt and stone? No, he hides it, protects it, works on it in secret, because he knows what others see as worthless rock is actually priceless treasure. You thought your isolation was punishment, but it was preparation. You thought your silence was abandonment, but it was preservation. You thought your waiting was waste, but it was refinement. Why didn't God let you shine sooner? Why didn't he rescue you when the attacks first began? Why did he let you sit in that prison of rejection for so long? Because, beloved, premature exposure kills destiny. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led Israel out of Egypt. 40 years. Not because God forgot him, because God was preparing him. Joseph rotted in prison for years after being betrayed by his brothers. Years, not because God abandoned him, because God was positioning him. David was anointed king as a boy, but didn't wear the crown for decades. Decades not because God lied to him, because God was developing him. And you, dear one, you've been in your season of hiddenness, not because you failed, not because you're forgotten, but because what God is preparing to do through you requires a depth of character that only comes through fire. The people who watched you struggle, they see failure. God sees fortification. The ones who whispered about your setbacks, they see defeat. God sees development. The voices that said you'd never make it, they see the end. God sees the beginning. If you believe you are being saved, not discarded, write in the comments right now, I am not abandoned, I am being prepared. Do it now. Let heaven know you understand what's really happening. You are not a casualty of cosmic neglect. You are a strategic reserve in heaven's army. You are not a victim of divine oversight. You are a secret weapon being forged in hidden places. You are not the forgotten child. You are the chosen vessel being prepared for such a time as this. Remember Queen Esther, hidden in the palace for years, trained in secret, prepared for a moment she didn't even know was coming. And when Haman's plot threatened to destroy God's people, she was ready for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. But I hear your heart whispering, what if I'm wrong? What if this is just wishful thinking? What if I really am forgotten? Let me ask you something, beloved. If you were truly forgotten, would you be watching this video right now? Would your spirit be stirring? Would something deep inside you be recognizing these words as truth? No, your presence here right now is proof that your time of hiddenness is ending. Your season of preparation is concluding. The divine alarm clock is about to sound. The same God who counted every tear is about to turn every test into testimony. The same God who recorded every betrayal is about to transform every wound into wisdom. The same God who watched them watch you suffer is about to make them watch you soar. You are not forgotten, child. You are treasured. You are not abandoned, beloved. You are appointed. You are not discarded, chosen one. You are destined. But here's what your enemies don't know. Here's what those silent spectators never saw coming. The very isolation they thought would break you has actually been arming you. Are you ready to discover what weapons heaven has been forging in your wilderness? Are you prepared to learn why your pain was never pointless, but purposeful? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why they should have defended you when they had the chance. Stay with me. Your vindication is about to begin. They will see the one they tried to kill, being raised by heaven itself. Listen to me, chosen one. Listen. While they whispered your eulogy, heaven was writing your resurrection story. While they measured your grave, God was measuring your crown. You think this is over. You think their silence won. You think because they turned their backs, walked away, left you bleeding on the battlefield of betrayal, you think that's the final chapter. Oh, beloved, you have no idea what's coming. Lazarus lay dead for 4 days. 4 days his sisters wept. His friends mourned. The whole village said, it's finished. He's gone. There's nothing left. But Jesus was just getting started. John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life. Not I might be, not I hope to be, I am. And the same God who called Lazarus from the tomb is calling your name right now. They tried to bury you, didn't they? They threw dirt on your dreams. They covered your calling with their lies. They thought if they could just silence you long enough, you'd disappear. But here's what they forgot. You can't bury a seed and expect it to stay dead. You are not buried, beloved. You are planted. And right now, something is stirring beneath the surface. Something they can't see. Something they can't stop. Something that's about to crack through the concrete of their assumptions and bloom in their faces. Do you believe your time has come? Right, I will see God's righteousness revealed. To anyone who has been held down by someone they loved, let them know that as long as there is heaven, there is restoration. As long as God breathes, there is breakthrough. Listen, when they think they have cast you out of the light, God is rewriting the script before their very eyes. And in the next chapter, you are the main character. Picture this moment, beloved. Picture it clearly. The same office where they whispered about your failure will echo with news of your promotion. The same family gathering where they predicted your downfall will celebrate your vindication. The same church where they questioned your calling will witness your anointing. They thought they were watching your funeral, but they were actually attending your resurrection rehearsal. Isaiah 61:3. To bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Instead of. God doesn't just heal what was broken, He replaces it with something they never imagined possible. You want to know why they're getting nervous. You want to know why they can't sleep at night. Because their spirit knows. Their spirit knows. The earthquake is coming. Every David needs his Goliath moment. Every Moses needs his Red Sea moment. Every Daniel needs his lion's den moment. And chosen one, this is your moment. When the stone rolled away from Jesus' tomb, it wasn't just to let him out. It was to let the world see what resurrection looks like. And when God rolls away the stone from your situation, it won't be subtle. It won't be quiet. It won't be something people can ignore or explain away. The very people who held you down will stand and watch as you are lifted up into the light. They'll see the hands that once pushed you into the pit, now reaching up in amazement at your position. They'll hear the voices that once mocked your dreams, now whispering, "How did this happen?" They'll witness the ones who wrote your obituary, now watching your inauguration. And here's the most beautiful part, beloved, the most glorious twist in this divine drama. You won't have to say a word. You won't have to defend yourself. You won't have to prove anything. Your presence will be your proclamation. Your peace will be your proof. Your promotion will be their conviction, because when heaven lifts you up, when God himself becomes your elevator, when the creator of the universe decides it's time for your vindication, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, every eye will see. You are a buried song, beloved, but now it's time to be sung in the sacred square. So tell me, can you feel it stirring? Can you sense the earthquake beginning? Can you hear heaven's trumpet preparing to sound? But before we go any further, we need to talk about the cost of your vindication, because what God is about to do comes with a price tag that your enemies never calculated. Not everyone will see their vindication in this lifetime, but you will. Not everyone will watch their enemies bow in acknowledgement, but you will. Not everyone will receive their flowers while they can still smell them, but you will. Beloved, I need you to understand something that most preachers won't tell you. Most Christians are taught to wait for heaven for their reward. Your reward is in the afterlife, they say. Just endure now, rejoice later. But that's not your story. You are a notarized letter of justice, sealed by heaven itself. And when God notarizes something, it gets delivered publicly, undeniably, in this lifetime. Listen to me carefully. The psalmist didn't write, "I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the afterlife." No, he declared in Psalm 27:13, "I believe I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." In the land of the living. Why are you still waiting for heaven to get your justice? Why are you accepting scraps when God promised you a banquet? Why are you whispering when he gave you a testimony that should thunder? Let me tell you what separates you from the masses, chosen one. Most people, they get broken and stay broken. They get betrayed and learn to live with less. They get knocked down and convince themselves that crawling is walking. Not you. Not everyone will have their name cleared in the newspapers, but you will. Not everyone will see their accusers publicly embarrassed, but you will. Not everyone will watch their haters eat their words with a side of humble pie, but you will. Do you know why? Because when they attacked you, they didn't just touch flesh and bone. They touched someone with divine documentation. They picked a fight with heaven's favorite. They threw stones at someone whose name is literally written in God's palm. Isaiah 49:16. I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. You think that's poetry? That's a legal document. That's heaven's letterhead. That's God's personal signature on your life. And here's what they don't understand about divine justice. It doesn't just correct the record, it overcorrects. It doesn't just restore what was stolen, it pays back with interest. Joel 2:25 promises, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. But look closer. The Hebrew word for restore is shalom, meaning to make complete, to make whole, to repay with abundance. So let me ask you something that's going to shake you. How do you know if you're a person personally marked for public restoration by heaven? Here's how you know if you've been humiliated publicly, your vindication will be public. If you've been lied about in broad daylight, your truth will shine in broad daylight. If you've been rejected by many, you'll be celebrated by more. Not everyone gets the public vindication, beloved. Most people get private apologies, quiet settlements, behind closed doors, my bad conversations. But you're getting the front page. You're getting the headline. You're getting the kind of turnaround that makes people take screenshots. Because when God restores publicly, He's not just fixing your situation. He's making a statement. He's sending a message. He's putting up a billboard that reads, "This one is mine. Touch them again if you dare." I need you to comment right now. I am not just saved. I am publicly restored. Because heaven is taking roll call. Heaven is counting votes. Heaven is marking who believes they deserve more than crumbs. Listen, not all stories end well in the eyes of men. But your story, heaven will end it in a way that makes all eyes open, in a way that makes your mother proud, in a way that makes your children say, "That's my parent," in a way that makes your enemies wish they'd treated you better when they had the chance. But here's what you need to understand about this public restoration that's coming. It's not going to look like anything you've imagined. It's not going to come from where you expected. And it's definitely not going to happen on your timeline. Because what God is about to do for you is so unprecedented, so unthinkable, so beyond human logic, that when it happens, there will be only one explanation. God did this. But before your vindication can be public, something has to happen in private, something that will determine whether you receive a good restoration or a great one. Are you ready to discover what that something is? Because what I'm about to reveal will separate those who get blessed from those who get publicly blessed. Stay with me. What comes next changes everything. Start each day by looking in the mirror and asking yourself one question. Am I living like someone whose vindication is guaranteed? Or am I living like someone still begging for scraps? Your posture, your words, your decisions should reflect the confidence of someone who knows their story ends in victory. Stop apologizing for taking up space. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You're not arrogant, you're aware. When someone betrays you, give yourself exactly 48 hours to feel the full weight of it. Cry, rage, question everything, but set a timer. After those 48 hours, shift your energy from reaction to documentation. God keeps records, and so should you. Not for revenge, but for clarity. Write down what happened, who was involved, and who stayed silent. This isn't bitterness, it's wisdom. You're creating a reference guide for future decisions about who deserves access to your energy. Here's what most people get wrong about being chosen. They think they have to defend themselves constantly. Wrong. Learn the power of strategic silence. When people attack your character, don't immediately jump to defend. Let them talk. Let them reveal themselves. Your silence isn't weakness. It's collecting evidence. God is watching, recording, preparing His response. Your job isn't to convince everyone you're right. Your job is to stay aligned with heaven while earth sorts itself out. Every 90 days, audit your inner circle with surgical precision. Ask yourself, who celebrated my last victory? Who checked on me during my last struggle? Who gossips to me because they definitely gossip about me? Cut access accordingly. Being chosen doesn't mean being everyone's emotional dumping ground. It means being selective about who gets front row seats to your life. Your energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Stop viewing your current struggles as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. Every betrayal is teaching you discernment. Every disappointment is strengthening your resilience. Every closed door is redirecting you toward your divine assignment. When you're in the valley, don't just survive it, study it. What is this season teaching you? How is it preparing you for the platform God is building? When your vindication comes, and it will, resist the urge to gloat or attack. Your comeback should be so graceful, so powerful, so undeniably blessed that even your enemies have to acknowledge God's hand on your life. Let your success be your revenge. Let your peace be your power. Let your elevation be your evidence. The goal isn't to make them feel small, it's to make God look big. End each day with this declaration: I am not waiting for heaven to vindicate me. Heaven is working through earth to vindicate me now. My story will end publicly, powerfully, and perfectly. I am chosen, covered, and coming back stronger. Living as chosen isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. It's about walking with the confidence of someone who's read the end of their own book and knows they win. Your vindication isn't just coming. It's actively being orchestrated. Live accordingly. Payback time is not the time for revenge. It is the time for heaven to expose the truth, for the whole world to see. Beloved, we've journeyed through the pain together. We've identified the betrayers. We've recognized the silent accomplices. We've declared your guaranteed vindication. But now we reach the final verdict. You are the final bell. And when that bell rings, every mask falls. Every lie crumbles. Every pretense dissolves. This isn't about you getting even, chosen one. This is about God getting glory. Listen to me carefully. The enemy convinced you that payback meant pain, that vindication required vengeance, that justice demanded cruelty. He lied. God's payback isn't pain. It's divine clarity that no one can deny. When the Almighty moves on your behalf, He doesn't destroy your enemies. He exposes them. He doesn't crush their spirits. He reveals their spirits. He doesn't break their lives. He unveils their lies. Proverbs 26:27 declares, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it." But notice, God didn't dig the pit. They did. God simply removes the camouflage. Right now, this very moment, heaven is pulling back the curtain on every scheme plotted against you. Every whispered lie is being broadcast. Every hidden agenda is being revealed. Every false friend is being exposed. And you don't have to lift a finger. Tell me something, dear one. Why are you still carrying the burden of revenge? Why are you plotting comebacks when God is orchestrating revelations? Why are you planning retaliation when heaven is preparing vindication? You think your job is to prove them wrong, but your job is to prove God right. The truth they tried to bury, it's surfacing. The light they attempted to dim, it's blazing. The voice they sought to silence, it's about to thunder. Not through your anger, through your authenticity, not through your bitterness, through your breakthrough, not through your revenge, through your resurrection. 2 Corinthians 4:2 commands us to reject hidden and shameful ways. But what happens when others live in hidden and shameful ways? While attacking your transparency, God exposes them. Their masks are dissolving. Their charades are ending. Their performances are being canceled. Not because you cursed them, because you carried truth. Not because you attacked them, because you attracted light. And light always exposes darkness. Do you understand what's happening right now? While you've been walking in integrity, they've been walking in deception. While you've been carrying truth, they've been carrying lies. While you've been living in the light, they've been hiding in shadows. And shadows disappear when the sun rises. Your sunrise is here, chosen one. Your moment of divine clarity has arrived. The fog of confusion is lifting. The smoke of lies is clearing. And when it does, when the air becomes crystal clear, When the truth stands naked in the light, everyone will see who was really who. Heaven doesn't need your revenge, beloved. Heaven needs your clarity, and that clarity, that crystal clear, undeniable, impossible to argue with clarity, that's what makes justice happen. Isaiah 54:17 promises, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." But look closer at that word, condemn. In Hebrew, it's rasha, meaning to declare guilty. You don't have to make them guilty. You just have to declare what already is. The truth doesn't need your help to be true. Light doesn't need permission to shine. Justice doesn't require your assistance to flow. Your only job, stand in your truth, walk in your light, live in your justice. And when you do, when you refuse to dim your light to make others comfortable, when you refuse to hide your truth to keep others secure, when you refuse to silence your testimony to preserve their lies, that's when the final bell rings. Right now, comment, "I am the light they once tried to hide," if you're ready to stop seeking revenge and start radiating truth. Because heaven is taking roll call for those ready to be vessels of divine clarity. But here's what you need to understand about this divine exposure that's coming. It won't happen in the shadows. It won't occur behind closed doors. It won't unfold in private conversations. When God exposes lies, He does it in broad daylight. When heaven reveals truth, it's impossible to miss. When the Almighty brings clarity, the whole world sees. And that kind of public vindication, that level of undeniable revelation, that magnitude of divine clarity, it requires one final element that separates those who get quietly vindicated from those who get publicly vindicated. Are you ready to discover what that element is? Because what I'm about to reveal will determine whether your vindication whispers or roars. Can you hear it? That sound, echoing through the corridors of heaven. Your name, not the name they called you when they wanted to hurt you. Not the label they pinned on you when they wanted to shame you. Not the whispered accusations that followed you through sleepless nights. Your real name. Heaven is calling your name right now, not to bring you home, but to restore your honor. For too long, beloved, you've been living under their definitions. Failure, disappointment, too sensitive, not enough. They branded you with words that were never yours to carry. They nicknamed you with their fear, their jealousy, their own brokenness. But those were earth names, temporary labels, lies dressed up as truth. Heaven has been waiting for this exact moment, to call you by the name that was decided before your first breath, before your first heartbreak, before they ever had the chance to wound you. Isaiah 43:1 declares, "I have called you by name, you are mine. Not I will call you, not I might call you. I have called you." Past tense, already done, settled in eternity. Do you understand what's happening right now? This isn't just encouragement. This is official notification, heaven's roll call. The universe is echoing your sacred name across dimensions you can't even see. Why now? Why is heaven calling your name officially at this moment and not before? Because you've graduated chosen one. You've passed the test that most people never pass. You've been called weak and stayed strong. You've been called wrong and held on to truth. You've been called a failure, while heaven was calling you faithful. You are no longer a shadow lurking behind the scenes, hoping someone will notice your worth. You are the one being called to the center of heaven's stage, spotlighted, announced, presented. Listen to me carefully. They may have called you broken, but heaven calls you redeemed, forgotten. But heaven calls you remembered, worthless. But heaven calls you priceless mistake. But heaven calls you masterpiece. Revelation 2:17 promises, "I will give them a white stone, with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it. Your new name isn't just coming, beloved, it's being announced. Right now, in frequencies only your spirit can hear. Every morning you woke up carrying their labels. Heaven was whispering your real name. Every night you went to bed believing their lies. Heaven was writing your truth in golden letters across the sky. Why do you think they worked so hard to rename you? Why do you think they were so determined to make you forget who you really are? Because they knew, deep down they knew you carried something they could never touch. A name, an identity, a calling that threatened their entire fake kingdom. But here's what they didn't understand about names written in heaven. They're permanent, irrevocable, unchangeable. Luke 10:20 reminds us, rejoice that your names are written in heaven, not penciled in, not typed in, written, carved, engraved with the finger of God Himself. Right now, comment, my name is in the book of heaven. Because this isn't just participation, this is declaration. This is you agreeing with what heaven has already decided about you. And once heaven has spoken your name, once the universe has echoed your identity, once God Himself has called you by your sacred title, no earthly force can deny who you are. No gossiping tongue can rename you. No lying report can redefine you. No jealous heart can diminish what heaven has declared final. They spent years trying to convince you that you were nobody, but heaven has been calling you somebody since before time began. They whispered that you were worthless, but heaven has been shouting that you are priceless since before stars were born. They said you were forgotten, but heaven has never stopped calling your name. Every single day, for your entire life. Can you hear it now? Listen, really listen. Your name, not the name they gave you in anger, not the name they called you in jealousy. Your heaven name, your glory name, your eternity name. That sound you're hearing in your spirit right now. That's not your imagination. That's not wishful thinking. That's heaven's official announcement. But here's what you need to understand about this sacred naming ceremony that's happening over your life. This isn't just about restoring your identity. This is about releasing your authority. Because when heaven calls your name, it's not just recognition, it's authorization. And with that authorization comes power that your enemies never saw coming. Power they can't fight. Power they can't steal. Power they definitely can't survive. Are you ready to discover what happens when heaven doesn't just call your name, but releases your authority? Because what I'm about to reveal will separate those who just get their name back from those who get their name back with interest. Stay with me. The universe is about to shift dramatically. Once upon a time, they looked down on you. Now, they're about to look up to you. Once upon a time, they whispered behind your back. Now, they'll whisper your name in AW. The one who was bowing down will now stand on the shoulders of those who despised them. Beloved, do you hear that sound? That's the sound of heaven's chessboard being flipped. That's the sound of divine justice reversing every insult, every dismissal, every time they made you feel less than. You are the throne that was once covered with dust, now being wiped clean and placed in the center of the palace. They used to ignore your calls. You will have them calling you, begging for your attention. They used to question your worth. You will have them questioning how they ever doubted you. They used to treat you like the help. You will be the one they come to for help. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You were never inferior. You were never useless. You were just misplaced, like a $20 bill in a penny jar, like a diamond in a drawer full of costume jewelry, like a Stradivarius violin in a pawn shop. But when heaven adjusts the chessboard, and it's happening right now, all the misplaced pieces will have to make way for the one who is truly called. The Bible declares in Luke 14:11, everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. But here's what most people miss. This isn't just spiritual poetry. This is heaven's operating system. This is God's algorithm for justice. How many times have you watched someone with half your talent get twice your recognition? How many times have you seen people with no integrity get the opportunities that should have been yours? How many times have you wondered, God, when is it my turn? Well, chosen one, your turn is now. You want to know how you recognize when heaven is about to change your position. Here are the signs when the people who once dismissed you suddenly start asking for your opinion. When doors that were slammed in your face start swinging wide open. When your name starts appearing in conversations you're not even part of. When opportunities start chasing you instead of you chasing them. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's heaven saying, enough. It's time to put this one where they belong. They used to make you feel invisible. Now you'll be unavoidable. They used to act like you didn't matter. Now they'll discover they can't function without what you bring. They used to push you to the back. Now heaven is moving you to the front. I need you to comment right now. I am returning to the place heaven has destined for me. Because heaven is taking roll call. Heaven is rearranging seating charts. Heaven is moving people from the bleachers to the front row. Here's what they never understood about pushing you down, beloved. Every time they stepped on you, they were actually creating a platform. Every time they tried to bury you, they were planting you like a seed. Every time they dismissed you, they were making room for your promotion. Psalm 75:7 declares, "It is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another." Not man, not politics, not popularity. God determines who rises and who falls. And here's your prophetic word for this season. He who has risen by cunning will be brought down. He who has been pushed back will be exalted in due time. In due time, those who climbed over your back to get to the top, they're about to discover that thrones built on betrayal don't have solid foundations. Those who gained their position by pushing you out of yours, they're about to learn that stolen seats don't come with staying power. Because when God restores you, he doesn't just give you a position, he gives you the position. He doesn't just open a door, he opens the door. He doesn't just give you influence, he gives you the kind of influence that makes your former oppressors say, "How did I miss that they were chosen?" You feel that shift in the atmosphere, don't you? That's the sound of heaven's elevator coming to pick you up. That's the sound of divine reversal clicking into place. That's the sound of your season changing from surviving to thriving. But here's what you need to understand about this divine reversal that's coming for you. It's not going to happen gradually. It's not going to unfold over years. When God flips the script on your situation, it's going to be so sudden, so dramatic, so undeniable that people will say, "What happened to them overnight?" And the answer will be simple. Heaven happened. Justice happened. Divine positioning happened. But there's something you must do before this reversal takes place. Something that will determine whether you handle your elevation with grace, or whether you repeat the same mistakes as those who once oppressed you. Are you ready to discover what that is? Because what I'm about to share with you will be the difference between temporary success and permanent legacy. Stay with me. The most important part is coming next. You don't have to expose anyone. The light is doing it for you. Stop trying to prove yourself, beloved. Stop screaming your innocence to deaf ears. Stop carrying the burden of convincing people who've already made up their minds. The light is speaking for you. For too long you've watched them wear their masks. Perfect masks, righteous masks, masks of concern, masks of wisdom, masks of moral superiority, while you stood there raw and exposed, wondering why everyone believed their performance over your truth. But here's what you couldn't see. from where you were standing. The light has been growing stronger, and when light reaches a certain intensity, masks don't just slip, they disintegrate. Matthew 10:26 declares, "Nothing is concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Nothing. Tell me something, chosen one. Have you noticed the shift? Have you felt the atmosphere changing around those who wronged you? That nervous energy they carry now, that forced laughter that doesn't reach their eyes. That's not coincidence. That's the light pressing against their darkness. They built their reputation on your silence. They constructed their image on your suffering. They painted themselves as saints while casting you as the sinner. But masks require darkness to stay in place. And the light, beloved, the light is getting brighter. Do you know what happens when someone has been playing a role for so long they forget it's not real? When the spotlight finally hits them, they don't know how to be authentic. They panic. They overcompensate. They start making mistakes, big mistakes. While you've been learning to walk in truth, they've been perfecting their lies. While you've been developing character, they've been developing characters. But here's the thing about light. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't compromise. It doesn't give warnings. It just reveals. Luke 8:17 promises, "Nothing is hidden that will not become evident, nor anything secret that will not be known and come to light." This isn't a threat. This is a guarantee. Right now, as I speak these words, the spirit world is actively pulling back the curtain on every performance, every pretense, every carefully crafted lie that has been used to diminish your light. You don't need to do anything. Why is this happening now? Why is the light starting to reveal what's been hidden? Because your season of vindication has arrived. Because heaven has decided that enough is enough. Because God is tired of watching His chosen ones carry shame that was never theirs to bear. Have you been silent because you were afraid of being misunderstood? Have you swallowed your truth because you feared their distortion? Have you hidden your light because you were tired of their shadows trying to snuff it out? Comment right now, "I don't need to prove anything. The light is speaking for me." Because, beloved, your silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. While they've been talking, you've been transforming. While they've been performing, you've been preparing. And now the stage is set differently. The spotlight has shifted. The audience is watching. And every mask they've worn, every role they've played, every lie they've told, it's all being exposed. You don't need to claim credit. You don't need to scream your vindication from rooftops. You don't need to post receipts or gather evidence. You just need to stand. Because the same light that's exposing their darkness is illuminating your truth. The same force that's tearing down their facades is building up your testimony. While their masks are falling, your face is shining. When light reaches its full intensity, all performances must end. All roles must cease. All pretense must die. And when that happens, chosen one, only the real will remain standing. They built their kingdoms on quicksand. They constructed their towers on lies. They painted their portraits with borrowed light. But you were forged in the fire of truth. You were refined in the furnace of authenticity. You were shaped by the hands of the one who is light. Isaiah 61 calls to you, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Your light, not borrowed, not stolen, not performed, yours. The masks are falling. The roles are ending. The light is revealing. And you don't have to do anything but be who you've always been. But here's what most people don't understand about this divine exposure that's happening. It's not just about revealing the false. It's about establishing the true. It's not just about tearing down their kingdoms. It's about building up yours and the foundation of your kingdom. It's being laid right now in ways you can't even imagine. Are you ready to see how deep this vindication goes? Because what I'm about to show you next will explain why every mask had to fall before your crown could be revealed. Stay with me. The real story is just beginning. Beloved, breathe with me for a moment. I know you're carrying anger that feels like molten lead in your chest, and I know that rage has become your armor against a world that watched you bleed without flinching. But what I'm about to tell you will shift something so deep in your spirit that you'll never see your pain the same way again. The return from heaven is always greater than the pain you have ever suffered. Always. You see, dear one, heaven doesn't operate like the courthouse on Main Street, where they hand out settlements and call it justice. Heaven doesn't give you back what was stolen and say, "There, we're even." No. When God restores, He doesn't just mend your broken places. He weaves you an entirely new identity from threads of glory you didn't even know existed. Let me ask you something that will settle deep in your soul tonight. Is there a healing so great that you no longer want to talk about the pain I'm talking about? The kind of restoration that doesn't just repair the damage, it transforms the wound into a doorway. The kind of divine intervention that doesn't just give you your old life back. It hands you a completely rewritten story where you're no longer the victim, but the bearer of healing fire. Listen to what Isaiah 61:3 promises you: to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy, for mourning the garment of praise, for the spirit of heaviness. But look closer at that word, beauty. In Hebrew, it's pir, which means a headdress, a crown, something that elevates you above your previous station. God isn't just cleaning up your ashes, beloved. He's crowning you with something that makes people forget you were ever burned. You've been asking, "When will I get justice?" But heaven has been whispering, "When will you let me give you something better than justice? When will you let me give you transformation so complete that your enemies become footnotes in a story where you're the hero?" They may have taken your voice in that boardroom, silenced you when you tried to speak truth. They may have robbed you of your reputation, stolen your honor like thieves in broad daylight. But here's what they don't understand about heaven's economy. God doesn't restore like humans restore. He doesn't just give back. He upgrades. You know what Job got after his season of suffering, not just his old flocks back, not just his old house rebuilt. The Bible says in Job 42:12, "The Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning." More children, more livestock, more years, more influence, more everything. But here's the part most people miss. Job's pain became his platform. His story became his ministry. His wound became his witness. So let me ask you something that's going to shake the bitterness right out of your bones. What if your deepest wound is actually your greatest qualification? What if the very thing that almost destroyed you is the exact thing God intends to use to heal thousands? I need you to understand something that will change how you see every scar, every sleepless night, every tear you cried in the dark. You are not being compensated, you are being remade. And remade not from the wound, but from the will of heaven. Heaven isn't just patching up your broken heart like some cosmic repair shop. No. He's taking the fragments of your shattered dreams and melting them down in the fire of His love, then pouring that molten gold into a completely new mold, one that looks like victory, sounds like wisdom, and carries the weight of authentic authority. When God gave Joseph his coat of many colors after 13 years of betrayal and imprisonment, He wasn't just giving him nice clothes, He was clothing him with authority that made his brothers, the same ones who sold him, bow down and ask for bread. The pain didn't just end, beloved. It became the foundation for a purpose so powerful that it saved nations. Right now, I need you to comment, "I accept the part that heaven is giving back," because heaven is taking attendance. Heaven is marking who's ready to receive not just healing, but upgrade. Not just restoration, but transformation. The rage you're carrying, that white-hot anger that burns in your chest at 3 a.m. when you replay what they did. I need you to understand that even that anger is sacred. God isn't asking you to pretend it doesn't exist. He's asking you to let Him transfigure it. Because what you're about to discover in what comes next will show you exactly how that rage, that pain, that sense of injustice becomes the very fuel for the most powerful testimony this world has ever seen from you. You thought you were being punished, but you were actually being prepared for something so magnificent, so unprecedented, so beyond your imagination, that when it manifests, people won't just say, "Look how God blessed them." They'll say, "Look how God transformed them." But before that transformation can be complete, there's one more truth you need to understand about the specific way heaven handles the accounts of those who wounded you. Are you ready to discover why your enemies are about to face something they never saw coming? But there's something deeper happening here, beloved. Something that will shake you to your very core when you understand it. Your vindication, your public restoration, your divine payback. It was never just about you. Every tear you've shed in secret, every prayer you've whispered through gritted teeth, every moment you've stood alone while others watched you bleed, none of it was meaningless. You thought you were just surviving, but God was using your survival to pave a pathway for generations who haven't even been born yet. Listen to me carefully. The reason your battles have been so intense, so public, so relentless is because you're not just fighting for your own freedom. You're breaking chains that have held your bloodline captive for decades. Isaiah 43:19 declares, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth, do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." You are that new thing. You are that way being made in the wilderness. Have you ever wondered why your pain feels so different from everyone else's? Why your struggles seem to cut deeper, last longer, require more strength than what ordinary people face? Because ordinary people don't carry the weight of being generational breakers. You are a torch, beloved. And yes, the wind has tried to blow you out more times than you can count. The storms have been fierce. The darkness has been suffocating. But look at you, still burning, still shining, still refusing to be extinguished. And that flame, that stubborn, relentless, holy flame inside you, it's not just keeping you alive. It's lighting the path for someone else who's stumbling through their own darkness right now. We are not islands, chosen one. We are not isolated incidents of God's grace. We are connected. We are part of a divine network, a spiritual GPS system that God uses to guide His people through the wilderness of this broken world. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a single mother in Detroit who's about to give up. There's a widower in Miami who thinks God has forgotten him. There's a teenager in Phoenix who believes the lies about their worth. And your story, your testimony, your refusal to quit is the lighthouse they need to find their way home. This is why the enemy fought you so hard. This is why the attacks were so vicious, so coordinated, so persistent. Because he knew that if you survived, if you overcame, if you rose from those ashes, you wouldn't just be free. You'd be a freedom fighter for thousands. Have you ever considered that the pain you silently endured is the master key to unlock prison doors for an entire generation? Every battle you fought in the darkness was preparing you to be a light for those still trapped in theirs. Every wound you've carried was teaching you how to heal others. Every mountain you've climbed was showing you how to guide others up the same path. You don't just survive, beloved, you survive to lead the way. Deuteronomy 8:2 reminds us, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart." But here's what most people miss. The wilderness wasn't just about what God wanted to know about you. It was about what you needed to learn about the wilderness, so you could guide others through it. Moses didn't wander 40 years in the desert just for his own character development. He was learning every oasis, every shortcut, every dangerous path, so he could lead 2 million people to the promised land. Your wilderness wasn't punishment, it was education, advanced training in spiritual warfare, divine endurance, and supernatural breakthrough. And now that you've graduated from God's school of hard knocks, thousands of people are waiting for you to step into your role as their guide. They don't need another motivational speaker. They need someone who's been where they are. They don't need another person with easy answers. They need someone with battle scars and victory stories. Every battle you have ever been through, every betrayal that cut you to the bone, every night you cried yourself to sleep, was not just for you to survive. It was so that you could be a sign, a direction, a word of life for those who thought they were alone in the dark. You are the light they never saw until you stepped out. If you're ready to embrace this calling, if you're willing to let your life light the way for others, comment right now, "I am a Pathfinder," because this is bigger than your personal vindication now. This is about the army God is raising up, the generation of chosen ones who refuse to stay silent about what God has done. But here's what you need to understand about stepping into this role of Pathfinder, this calling of generational breakthrough. There's a responsibility that comes with it, a weight that most people aren't prepared to carry, and a price that not everyone is willing to pay. Are you ready to discover what separates the survivors from the leaders? Start keeping a breakthrough journal today, not just for your own healing, but as a roadmap for others. Every obstacle you overcome, every strategy that works, every prayer that gets answered, write it down with the detail of someone creating a survival manual, because that's exactly what you're doing. When someone else faces the same mountain you just climbed, your documented journey becomes their GPS. Don't just survive your struggles, study them. What worked? What didn't? What would you tell someone starting where you started? Within 24 hours of every breakthrough victory or divine intervention in your life, share it with someone who needs hope. This isn't about bragging. It's about being a living lighthouse. Your testimony isn't just your story. It's someone else's roadmap out of hell, that promotion you got after years of being overlooked. Tell the woman at church who's facing workplace discrimination, that healing you received after the doctors gave up. Share it with the man battling the same diagnosis. Your breakthrough becomes their belief system. Most people hide their scars and only share their successes. But as a Pathfinder, your scars are your credentials. Learn to share your struggles while you're walking through them, not just after you've conquered them. When you're in the middle of financial hardship, divorce proceedings, or health challenges, find one person who's a few steps behind you in the same journey and become their encouragement. Your current battle becomes their future victory blueprint. Every decision you make should pass through this filter. How will this choice affect the people watching my life? Because whether you realize it or not, people are studying your moves. Your children, your co-workers, your neighbors, your social media connections. They're all taking notes on how you handle pressure, betrayal, loss, and comeback. Stop living like your choices only affect you. You're not just choosing for yourself. You're choosing for everyone who will follow your footsteps. Start thinking about what you want to be remembered for beyond your personal success. What doors do you want to kick open for others? What barriers do you want to break down? What lies do you want to expose with your truth? Begin intentionally building bridges while you're crossing them. Mentor someone monthly. Speak at least quarterly about your journey. Write video blog or somehow document your path. Your story isn't entertainment, it's education for someone's liberation. End each day asking yourself, What did I do today that made the path easier for someone else? If the answer is nothing, tomorrow's assignment is clear. You didn't survive your hell just to get comfortable in heaven. You survived to build escalators back to hell so others can climb out faster than you did. Your pain isn't private. It's public property meant to serve others. Your victory isn't personal. It's generational. Live accordingly because someone's watching, waiting, and depending on you to light the way. Beloved, if you've stayed with me through this entire message, then your spirit recognizes truth when it hears it. Let me remind you of what we've uncovered together today. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a vessel of divine purpose. Every betrayal you've endured, every silent witness to your pain, every moment you've stood alone, it's all been recorded in heaven's courtroom. Your vindication isn't just coming, it's already in motion. Remember this: not everyone will see their justice in this lifetime, but you will. Not everyone will watch their enemies acknowledge their worth, but you will. Not everyone will receive their flowers while they can still smell them, but you will, because you, dear one, are a notarized letter of justice sealed by heaven itself. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who counted every tear, who recorded every injustice, who watched when no one else would, He's still working. He's still moving. He's still orchestrating your comeback. And beyond that, you have a community right here, thousands of chosen ones who understand your journey because they've walked it too. Let me ask you something that will settle in your spirit tonight. If God has been preparing your vindication all along, if every closed door was redirecting you toward divine purpose, if every betrayal was actually positioning you for breakthrough, what would you do differently starting tomorrow? Right now, I want to pray over you. Not just words in the air, but a declaration over your life. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. Feel the presence of the Almighty surrounding you right now. Father God, I place my hands on the shoulders of every person watching this message. Right now, in this sacred moment, I ask you to let them feel your presence like never before. Lord, these are your chosen ones. They've been through the fire, but they're still standing. They've been betrayed, but they're